Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Steve from Linux, by the way, and today I wanted to approach a delicate subject, which is Linux isn't for everyone, and sometimes it's not even for me. And so a lot of times you see people that make it a lifestyle choice, and it's free software or die and that kind of thing. And it's not the reality we live in, and it's sort of nonsensical from the ground up, right? Like you don't have the source code to your BIOS. Your graphics card runs onboard firmware, so by the time the driver hits it, most of the stuff you can't even see anyways. So there's just this whole kind of tower of like, we would love things to be free and open, but it's not always. And so with that said, I'm successfully running Fedora 43 Silverblue, which is exciting. It's an OS tree-based OS, so that means like all my updates get put onto the core image, and you can revert from any of them easily, and it's basically Git for packages. And then what I can do is I can have like a containerization layer. And so that's all really cool, but I wanted to talk for a second about why I got here. I was running Omarchy and I wanted to run DaVinci Resolve, and as part of that, I needed to install the DaVinci Resolve Studio AUR package, and that requires the Qt5 packages. So since the last time I've done it, well, they didn't install right out of the repo and they weren't binaries, and so they had to compile. And so this was like multiple hours of compiling, which possibly result in errors. And so like if you're going to make a video and share things and all that, and you just want to install DaVinci Resolve real quick, well, you're going to have a bad time. You got to compile this thing forever and maybe it doesn't work. And so during that time, I was like, that's a huge devotion, and I can probably just install this all on Fedora Silverblue faster than I can even compile that package. And so that was largely right. And so if I fire up DaVinci Resolve here, you can see I have DaVinci Resolve 20. It's running on Fedora Silverblue, and that sort of has its own set of trade-offs, actually, which I'll get into. But you can see here that it all works really well, and certainly with the 5080, that works great. You know, everything's smooth, and everything loads instantly, and the scrubbing's fast and all that. It looks good to me. So all of this works pretty well, other than like maybe the window decorations. I can't like just drag this window around. Even if I do that, I still can't drag it around. So other than that, though, it works pretty good. And I'm actually using DaVinci Box for that, which I highly recommend. And that's sort of like the cell with Fedora Silverblue. And so if we pop open a terminal here, what you'll see is there's this Toolbox command. And you can do Toolbox list. And in this case, I've already created a few of them. But I have this DaVinci Box. And so that's kind of the key to working with DaVinci on Linux, is that DaVinci doesn't really, it's not developed for Linux natively in terms of like updating with the libraries and keeping up to date with the newest things. And so it's much better to have a container with generally known good libraries, and that's what we have here. And so Toolbox is really cool because you can do like Toolbox interdev. And so because my OS is Fedora Silverblue, I have this whole rollback, roll forward thing for the host OS. But then if I want to customize things or do things, I use this Toolbox command, which makes a bunch of containers that I can do. And so in this case, I actually have like NeoVim installed here, which means that it's not actually on my host OS, but I can install like my Python version I want, or a specific version of Ruby or things like that. And then it doesn't clutter the host OS. And that's really the concern with something like DaVinci Resolve. It's like, okay, I can go and I can compile these Qt5 libraries forever. Then they get installed all over my system, and I'm at the mercy of AUR, and there's like 20 packages. And so now my system is cluttered, and every update, it has to update those. And there's all sorts of incompatibilities that could exist. Whereas with Silverblue, it allows me to layer these on in a very clean manner and transfer them. And the next kind of evolution of this is like, for most people, is instead of going into Dev Toolbox and just treating it as a dev box, installing everything, you could make that a Docker file, and then you can just run that anywhere, right? So whether it's this box or another box, etc., you can just make that its own Docker container, and then it's totally portable. And whether you're on a Mac or Windows or Linux or Silverblue or not, you work outside the container. And I think that's probably one of the better models. And so all of that's to say, though, is that what I've just described to you, it doesn't take zero time. It's certainly not a great video editing workflow, and you might not be looking for that. So as we're kind of going into that, I do just want to kind of call out that everything does work. Like I installed Steam again, and Steam fires up too. And I was able to get the MangoHud working. So like if you wanted an FPS counter, you can do that. And if I just go up to like Baldur's Gate 3 here. I am running these Dell monitors at 120 hertz, so we should see something like that here. I will pump down the game volume just so you can still hear me. The game probably sounds better, but whatever. And so you can see that, yeah, this works great. I got the Vulkan FPS counter in the top left. It's super small for you, but that's that's one of the things I wanted to talk about, is that configuring that inside of a Flatpak is also a little annoying. So the way we get to here is I install a Flatpak for Steam, and I install a Flatpak for MangoHud, and then I set an environment variable. But then if I want to put another config file in there, it's still just a little annoying. And so that's kind of the trade-off you get with this system is everything is a separate container and all that, but you have to kind of deal with the configuration of it. And so, yeah, you can see here we're at 120 FPS, and I am not running this at a full 4K. I went ahead and I just put it at 2560 by 1440, and I thought that'd be a little better. But either way, Linux for gaming has really evolved. It's easy to use, and arguably could even be more compatible depending on what you're doing. So all of that to say is that Silverblue is pretty cool. Everything works, but there's some overhead setting this up. And we basically have two different types of containers. So if I do a Flatpak list, what you'll see is I have all of these different things like that MangoHud I mentioned, and I have Steam and VLC and Kdenlive and some other stuff here. And then if I do a Podman PS, you can see that that's where my DaVinci runs. So that's not a Flatpak. So all of that's to say is that it keeps your system clean. It's much more secure to have these in the containers, etc. But it's also a lot to handle in terms of configuring this all and setting it up. And it sort of brings up a philosophical point. And so you can spend a lot of time tweaking your system, and playing with stuff and building stuff is fun, but also there's a downside to it. So I also have this ThinkPad X1 Carbon here. And so I've been going between both systems, setting them up and configuring them. And they work well, but I was starting to make a list of things I'd want to talk about in a video and all that. And I was like, well, you got to set up the NVIDIA drivers, and then you got to set up Chrome. But if you want to have 1Password, well, Chrome's a Flatpak. And so you got to have this layered approach, and then you got to get the 1Password to communicate with it. And then I was like, well, you also need Toolbox or DistroBox to run DaVinci Resolve and set up that whole environment. And then I needed to get nerd fonts on there. And then also I ran into this thing about am I configuring my host OS, or should I do it in the container? And maybe fonts should be on the host versus the container itself. And then I had some DPI scaling issues where, because I was going through the X server with DaVinci Resolve, it wasn't exactly usable. And so I had to set that up so that I actually inject some environment variables when I launch it. And then what I found out is when I started trying to record the videos, well, my Elgato Cam Link, which people say works great on Linux, it's okay. I'm filming on it right now, but the USB auto suspends by default, sleep your USB devices, and then it can't resume. And so you have to unplug it and replug it, or at least remove the module. And so I think that's some of the things that you should expect. And I'm not exactly sure how to fix it, because it's we can file bug reports and we can say USB auto suspend is too aggressive for the series of devices and just hope it gets fixed. And we could submit a patch for that. But normally when I submit these patches, they are summarily rejected, right? And so the best you can do is you can be this one distro will support it this one way. And to be fair, those distros do exist. So there are other Silverblue distros that are pre-configured that have everything out of the box kind of working. But it's a lot of work, and it's kind of fragile in terms of these are very small communities, and they can move on, and they sort of they can, over time, Fedora is definitely more stable, for example, than the derivatives. And so it's all something I think about. And I guess that's kind of the point of this video is that most of these things, they do take time, and it's not necessarily more free, and it's not necessarily more collaborative in some ways, because you have to find a way to organize a whole bunch of people to make things better, and they have to be unified. And so in the case of the Elgato drivers, like I said, maybe we can get that auto suspend tweaked, or there can be a list of common devices you shouldn't sleep. And I think on Windows, for example, it doesn't just randomly go to sleep. And so that might be fixable. But the other things I mentioned, to have a normal person go through all that to edit a video, just to run a closed source software like DaVinci, that's kind of like, okay, I did all that and I'm still not running free software. And you could just do that on Windows in a few minutes. You can install Resolve and just be editing. Same with Mac OS. And so this is really just me saying that I want to be clear that when you run Linux, there are trade-offs between all this. And so it's like, do you want to do something or do you want to build knowledge? And I think that's really important just to kind of identify, because I tend to like Linux because we can build it ourselves and I can tweak everything in here, and I would have trouble tweaking this to the same degree on other operating systems. So I'm able to fix my problems and overcome them and make this video, and everything works great. But if people just want to make a video or tell a message or whatever, what I just said is a little bit of a heavy lift. And I think that that's something that people just need to take into account. And there are other trade-offs that we gain, though, because it is free and open mostly, for whatever that means, depending on whatever layer of the stack you're looking at. And Windows has had more and more ads, and Apple has this new liquid glass, which doesn't look great, and you also have no say in it. And so in this case, I can always pick my desktop and I can make it look exactly how I want and pick my environment, and that's really cool. And so it's more of a trade-off just between like easy and simple and freedom, and somewhere in that kind of triangle of things, and where easy is not the same as being simple, but freedom is somewhere at the top of the triangle too. And so these are all just big trade-offs to make. And you kind of have other paper cuts, like on the audio side of things, where it's like, hey, I have an MPOW HC5 headset, and it's like, well, I don't. I have Audio Engine A2 pluses, but they don't show up correctly here, but they show up right on Mac OS and they show up right on Windows. And to get that changed is a patch somewhere, but this company kind of stole the ID and somebody made a patch to it, and so it's already set like that, and maybe that'd be a regression. And so I just want to kind of call out that, like, not everything is this free software utopia. It's only as good as we make it, as we contribute, as we build it. But also that contribution layer is like, can you herd 1,000 cats at once? And that's somewhere where the big companies have an advantage, is that they can set a design philosophy like liquid glass. They can start driving it on down and make that change. Whereas with Linux, we really have to be very persuasive, but it doesn't mean that every community will agree or align on that. And, we see a lot of that with things like, should the core utils be written in Rust or not? So Rust is clearly a more safe language than C, but there's still a whole camp of people that are like, well, C is safe if you write it the right way, as if it doesn't have decades of very severe bugs at this point. So neither side is necessarily wrong, because you can also write Rust the wrong way. And so, these are just choices you have to make, but they're choices that you're doing as part of a community, which you may not realize you're in Linux until you push against it, right? Until you try to change something and make it better. And then you realize, well, it's not actually that easy. You really have to have some way to connect with people and to sell it and to get it merged, because, it's kind of the magic of GitHub is like, you can make a bunch of repos and you don't need approval from people. You can just fork it and put it in your own. And that allows that instantaneous speed, rather than like, I'm collaborating with the community and coordinating with it. And like, even with Fedora is great, but it is held back by, the legal department, where they're like, oh, we can't include the codecs and all these things. And other distros may make that easier, but whatever flavor you pick is going to have like this whole set of restrictions that may or may not exist in a different flavor, or it may not be licensed the same way, etc. And so it's just something you have to sort of figure out what's important to you. And so I know this video is kind of all over the place, but I just want to throw that out there because Linux is great. It's free. It's great for servers. I love it in the cloud. And as you can see, I have a fully functioning desktop that can make videos. It can look good. It's fast. It runs all the games and everything works. But if you're like newer to Linux, or if you're just wondering like what you should pick, or like, what you should give your little brother or something, well, these are all things you just want to take into account, because sometimes the videos that I make are very positively spun, and there's just more to it than that. And so you have to look at it more like a hobby or a labor of love, or, maybe somehow we can hope that just the regulatory bodies will enforce that hardware devices should have some sort of open interface of sorts, so that they could be programmed correctly with the drivers so that things like the Elgato disconnects don't happen, for example. Just because in that case, the reason that Elgato doesn't come back online is because it doesn't support the USB reset and all that. And so it would be nice to have some open standards just for like reusability and freedom and consumer rights and all that. So if you're listening, regulators, that would be a great thing to pass, just sort of like the repair your own hardware stuff. But how to interface with your own hardware. So if you're running Linux too, I'd love to know in the comments below, what's your philosophy on it? How do you pick and choose? Is it always the right tool for the right job? Or is it the right ideology for what you're looking to live in life? Otherwise, though, I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.